They said heroes always want the spotlight. But when the security cameras were checked that night, the man who saved her life didn't just walk away, he vanished. No name. No trace. Only one blurry frame of a single dad pulling the richest, most guarded CEO in the city away from death, then fading into the crowd like a ghost who had somewhere more important to be. And for reasons she didn't understand yet, she couldn't forget him. Chapter 1, Hook. People assumed female CEOs were untouchable, guarded behind glass towers and iron security. But that night, under the broken streetlight behind her corporate building, Evelyn Hale realized money and power couldn't stop a stranger's hatred. She didn't have time to scream when the man lunged at her with a knife. She only felt the cold rush of fear, the world spinning, the certainty that this was the end. Until a pair of strong hands grabbed her shoulders and yanked her out of the way, Evelyn collapsed to the ground, her breath shattering. The attacker ran when he saw the other man's stance, quiet, steady, dangerous. But the man who saved her didn't chase. Instead, he crouched beside her, checking if she was hurt, his voice calm in a way that made her trust him instantly. She looked up, trying to see his face, but all she caught was the faint outline under the dim light, broad shoulders, gentle eyes, and a softness in his voice that contrasted the sharp, decisive way he had saved her. "Are you okay?" he asked. She nodded even though she wasn't. Her hands shook violently. Police sirens were already approaching, but the man stood and stepped back. "Wait, your name," she said, lifting her hand. "Please, who are you?" But he shook his head. "Just someone who was passing by." Before she could say anything more, he slipped into the shadows. The sirens lit the alley, but he was already gone. Disappeared like he'd never been there, yet something in the way he pulled her to safety lingered in her mind long after. Everyone around Evelyn told her to forget him. This city was full of people who did the right thing only to walk away. But something inside her refused to let go. Not because he saved her life, but because in those few seconds, she saw something in him she never saw in anyone around her. Kindness without motive. Weeks passed, and life returned to its polished corporate rhythm. But Evelyn began noticing something strange. The security guard at the building said a man had returned her dropped bracelet that night, leaving it at the desk before disappearing again. A street cleaner told her a man fitting the description helped him lift heavy trash bins behind the alley 2 mornings after the attack. A barista remembered him buying a single hot chocolate with 2 marshmallows for his little girl. He'd said, that one detail struck Evelyn harder than it should have. He had a daughter. He wasn't a ghost. He was a father. A single dad, according to another worker who claimed the man was always hurrying somewhere, always tired but polite, always turning down help. The more she searched, the clearer it became. Whoever he was, he lived at the bottom of the city she ruled. Meanwhile, she, Evelyn Hale, spent her days surrounded by executives who pretended to care, people who valued her title more than her humanity, relatives who saw her as a walking bank account. And yet the only person who'd ever shown her real, raw compassion was a man who didn't want credit, reward, or attention. She wanted to thank him properly. She wanted to tell his daughter her father was a hero. But most of all, she wanted to know him, not the version the city whispered about, but the real man who was willing to risk his life for a stranger. What she didn't know was that she had already crossed paths with him again, just not as a CEO, but as a passenger in a cab. One rainy evening, while returning from a late meeting, she rode in the back of a taxi, half asleep, not even looking at the driver. She was exhausted, drained, numb. The driver barely spoke, his voice soft whenever he asked for directions or if she wanted the window up. It wasn't until she glanced at the rear mirror and noticed the same gentle eyes, the same voice, the same quiet steady presence, that her heart froze. It was him, the man who saved her life, and he didn't even realize she knew. Before she could speak, they hit traffic. He glanced back to check if she was okay, not realizing her stare held far more emotion than a normal glance should. She opened her mouth to say something, to thank him, to ask his name, anything. But then a small voice came through a speaker mounted near the dashboard. "Daddy? Are you coming home soon? I finished my drawing." His expression softened in a way that shattered her completely. A single dad, working late nights, wearing exhaustion like a second skin, yet still able to smile for his daughter. He hung up gently. "I'll be home soon, Peanut." Evelyn swallowed hard and leaned back, suddenly understanding why he always disappeared. He wasn't avoiding credit. He was racing against life just to give his daughter a chance. When the cab finally stopped at her building, she stepped out, gripping the door. "Thank you, for everything," she whispered. He looked confused. "For the ride?" But before she could say more, her phone rang with an urgent call from her board. She glanced at the screen, and when she looked up again he was gone, swallowed by the night traffic. She stood there on the sidewalk, clutching her chest. One thing had become certain: she was not done with him. And something deep inside her whispered, he wasn't done with her either. Some people spend their whole lives searching for the person who saved them. Evelyn didn't have to search anymore, she'd found him. But she had no idea that finding him would mean stepping into a world where survival wasn't measured by money, power, or status, but by love, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bond between a father and his child. After discovering who he was, Aiden Clark, a widowed father raising a 7-year-old girl named Maya, Evelyn quietly began looking for ways to help him, not as a CEO but as a woman who wanted to return a kindness she couldn't forget. She found out he worked 2 jobs, cab driver at night, delivery driver during the day. He lived in a tiny apartment with peeling walls. He never asked anyone for anything. He should have been bitter at life. Instead, he raised his daughter with more warmth than she ever felt in her mansion. The first time she saw him again was outside a school, where he stood waiting in the rain, soaked through because Maya had his only umbrella. When she ran out of the building and jumped into his arms, he laughed like he hadn't been standing in the storm for 20 minutes. Something inside Evelyn cracked. She stepped out of her car, approached them, and for the first time, he looked at her without confusion, now with shock. "You," he whispered. "You're that woman from the alley." "And the cab," she added softly. He blinked, embarrassed. "I didn't want you to think I was following you or something." "I don't think that," she said, her voice trembling more than she'd like. Little Maya peeked from behind him, clutching her drawing folder. "Daddy, is she your friend?" Aiden froze, but Evelyn smiled gently. "I'd like to be, if that's okay." Their connection formed slowly, quietly, the way wildflowers grow in broken pavement. Aiden tried to keep his distance. He believed his world was too small, too fragile, too unpolished for someone like her. But Evelyn kept showing up in ways that didn't make him feel small. She didn't offer money, she offered presence, she offered understanding, she offered someone to talk to when the weight of being both mom and dad became too heavy for him to hide. It was Maya who broke the last wall. One evening, when they all walked home together after a school event, Maya slipped her hand into Evelyn's and said, "I'm happy when you're here." Aiden saw that. He felt that, and for once, he didn't pull away. But life never lets happiness bloom without testing it. A week later, Aiden's second job cut his hours. His rent increased. Maya fell sick, and the medical bills swallowed more than he earned. He tried hiding it, working longer shifts, skipping meals, sleeping 4 hours a night. Evelyn noticed immediately, the hollow eyes, the limp in his step, the way he winced when lifting Maya. One night, after dropping her at home, he nearly collapsed on the sidewalk. Evelyn rushed to him, catching his arm. "Aiden, you can't keep doing this alone." "I have to," he whispered. "She needs me." "You don't have to choose between saving everyone and destroying yourself." But he shook his head, tears burning behind tired eyes. "I'm not good enough for your world, Evelyn. I can't be the man who stands beside a CEO. I can only be the man who stands beside my daughter." Her voice cracked. "Then let me stand beside both of you." He froze. Those words broke him, because no one had ever offered to stand with him, not since the day his wife died, leaving him with a baby and a world too heavy for one man to hold. Slowly, painfully, he allowed her into their lives. She helped Maya with schoolwork, kept Aiden company during late-night dinners, listened to his fears without judging, encouraged him to trust that he deserved support, too. And one afternoon, as they sat on a rooftop watching the sunset, Maya asleep between them, Aiden spoke the words that changed everything. "You keep trying to thank me for that night," he said quietly, "but you're the one who saved me." Evelyn swallowed hard. How? By seeing me. Really seeing me. A tear slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. You faded into the crowd that night, Aiden. But you left a mark I can't erase. He gently took her hand, his thumb brushing her knuckles, and you walked into a life I thought no one would ever want. For the first time in years, he let someone hold his heart without fear of it breaking. She looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. I'm not here because you saved my life. I'm here because you deserve a better one. The sunset washed the city in gold, wrapping the three of them in a warmth that felt like the beginning of something neither of them were brave enough to name yet, but both of them felt. Aiden exhaled, finally, after years of holding his breath. Stay, he said softly. If you want to. Evelyn squeezed his hand. I'm not going anywhere. And for the first time since the night she almost died, she felt truly alive, not because a man saved her life, but because she finally found one worth building together.